My ex-husband caused my life to crumble while living large with my best friend. Years later they begged me for help. Little did they know my success hid a sweet surprise. I never thought I'd be grateful for the day my husband left me for my best friend. But life has a way of surprising you. The memory is still crystal clear. Anton's cologne lingering in our bedroom as he packed his bags, while I stood in the doorway clutching a crumpled receipt I'd found in his jacket pocket, a reservation for two at La Maison, our special place. Except this time, it wasn't meant for me. My name is Jacqueline, and this is how I learned to turn betrayal into triumph. Jackie, we need to talk, Anton had said that morning, his voice unusually stern. I should have known something was wrong when he made coffee. He never made coffee. About the receipt? I asked, watching his face pale. Or about the fact that you've been sleeping with Yara? The mug in his hand trembled slightly. How did you find out? Well, when your husband suddenly starts working late every Tuesday and Thursday, and your best friend cancels your weekly lunch dates on the same days, it doesn't take a genius to connect the dots. He set the mug down, coffee sloshing over the rim. I didn't mean for this to happen, I laughed, but it came out more like a sob. Really? You didn't mean to sleep with my best friend? What? Did you trip and fall into her bed? Jackie, please, don't Jackie me. How long? 6 months, he whispered. The truth hit me like a physical blow. 6 months. Half a year of lies, of fake smiles, of Yara hugging me and asking about my marriage while sleeping with my husband behind my back. I'm moving out, Anton said, already heading for the stairs. Yara and we want to be together properly. I followed him upstairs, watching as he methodically packed away 12 years of our marriage into 2 suitcases. Does this make you feel better? I asked. Doing it properly? He paused, holding one of his expensive suits. We never meant to hurt you. That's funny because it hurts like hell. My phone buzzed. A message from Yara. I'm so sorry. I hope someday you can forgive us both. I threw the phone across the room, watching it crack against the wall. The sound made Anton jump. I'll send someone for the rest of my things, he said, zipping up his bags. The divorce papers will come through my lawyer. As he headed for the door, I called out, wait. He turned, hope flickering across his face. That watch I gave you for our 10th anniversary. The one you're wearing, take it off. Jackie, take it off. He removed it slowly, placing it on the hallway table. I picked it up, feeling its weight in my hand. You know what the inscription says? Time has only made us stronger. Funny how time actually showed me what a fool I've been. After he left, I sat in my kitchen, staring at the half-drunk coffee he'd abandoned. The house felt enormous and empty, echoing with memories I suddenly couldn't trust. Photos on the walls mocked me. Happy couples, friendly gatherings, Yara as my maid of honor at our wedding. The doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Ruby, my college friend who'd recently moved back to town. I came as soon as I saw your text, she said, wrapping me in a tight hug. What do you need? Ice cream? Wine? An alibi? For the first time that day, I laughed genuinely. All of the above. We sat on my kitchen floor sharing a bottle of Marlowe and a pint of chocolate ice cream. You know what the worst part is? I said, licking my spoon. I built my whole life around them, my best friend and my husband. I don't even know who I am without them. Ruby topped up my wine glass. Then maybe it's time to find out. What do you mean? Remember that idea you had in college? The natural skincare line? You were so passionate about it before Anton convinced you to take that corporate job instead. I blinked, memories flooding back. That was just a dream. Maybe it's time to make it reality, Ruby said, her eyes sparkling. You've got your savings, your business degree, and now you've got nothing holding you back. I stood up suddenly, wobbling slightly from the wine. Walking to my home office, I pulled out an old notebook from the bottom drawer. Inside were formulas, sketches, and plans I'd made years ago. You know what? I said, flipping through the pages, feeling a spark of excitement for the first time in hours. Maybe you're right. Maybe this isn't the end of my story. Ruby raised her glass. To new beginnings. I raised mine in return. A plan already forming in my mind. To rising from the ashes. 3 months after Anton walked out, I stood in my converted garage surrounded by dozens of small glass bottles and the sweet scent of essential oils. Ruby perched on a stool nearby, typing furiously on her laptop. Phoenix Rise Beauty, because every woman deserves a second chance at radiance, she read aloud. How's that for the tagline? I smiled, carefully measuring drops of rosehip oil into my latest batch. It's perfect, though I'm still not sure about using my personal story as a marketing angle. Trust me, Ruby said, spinning her laptop around. Your story is what makes this authentic. Look at these responses to our test campaign. The screen showed comments from women across the country. Finally, someone who gets it. Love that this brand stands for something real. Where can I pre-order? The doorbell interrupted our discussion. Through the garage window, I spotted a courier with an official-looking envelope. "I'll get it," Ruby offered, but I shook my head. "No. I need to face whatever this is." The envelope contained divorce papers, but tucked inside was a handwritten note from Anton. "I miss you. Can we talk?" My hand shook as I walked back to the garage. Ruby took one look at my face and knew. "The papers came?" I nodded, dropping them on the workbench, along with a note saying he misses me. "That manipulative piece of it doesn't matter." I cut her off, returning to my oils. "I've got more important things to focus on, like this formula that still isn't quite right." Ruby grabbed my hands, forcing me to stop. "Jackie, you're allowed to be angry." "I'm not angry," I said, pulling away. "I'm busy." "There's a difference." "Really? Because you've been measuring that same oil 4 times now." I looked down at the overflowing bottle and swore. "Fine. I'm angry. I'm furious. Happy now?" "Actually, yes." Ruby grinned. "Anger can be productive. Channel it into the business." She was right. Over the next few hours, we refined the formula until it was perfect, a healing blend that made my skin glow despite the stress and sleepless nights. "We need to get this in front of people," Ruby declared. "I know someone who runs a local wellness market. Let's set up a booth next weekend." The market was bustling when we arrived early Saturday morning. Our booth looked professional, but personal. Photos of my transformation journey subtly displayed alongside our products. "Remember," Ruby coached, "when people ask about the brand, be honest. Your vulnerability is your strength." The first few customers trickled in slowly, but word spread quickly about the Miracle Glow Serum. By noon, we had a steady stream of interested buyers. "This scent is amazing," one woman said, testing the serum. "What's your story?" I took a deep breath. 3 months ago, my husband left me for my best friend. Instead of letting it destroy me, I decided to create something beautiful from the pain. Her eyes widened. "My God, the same thing happened to my sister. She's still devastated." "Give her this," I said, handing her a sample. "Tell her it gets better." By day's end, we'd sold out of everything and collected a list of pre-orders. As we packed up, Ruby's phone buzzed. "Jackie," she said slowly, "you need to see this." It was an Instagram post from Yara, a photo of her and Anton in front of a sold sign, captioned, "New house, new beginnings. Rue blessed." I stared at their smiling faces, my stomach churning. They looked happy, settled, while I was starting over from scratch. "Don't let them get to you," Ruby warned. "Look what you've accomplished today." I gestured at our empty booth. "This? It's nothing compared to their new house." "No. It's better. It's yours. You built this from nothing but determination and talent." As if on cue, my phone dinged with an email notification. "Ruby," I whispered, "look at this." A major beauty retailer wanted to schedule a meeting about carrying Phoenix Rise in their stores. "Still think this is nothing?" Ruby asked, grinning. I read the email again, feeling something shift inside me. "You know what? You're right. Let them have their house. I'm building an empire." Back home, I finally opened the divorce papers. Instead of feeling devastated, I felt lighter. I signed each page with steady hands, then sealed the envelope. "To new beginnings," Ruby asked, pulling out a bottle of champagne. "To Phoenix Rise," I corrected, smiling as I heard my phone buzz with another order notification. "And to Karma, because she's just getting started." Little did I know how true those words would prove to be. 5 years can change everything. I stood in my office at Phoenix Rise headquarters watching the sunset paint the city skyline in shades of gold. The view still took my breath away even after 2 years in this building. "Jackie." Ruby burst through the door, tablet in hand. "Have you seen the numbers from last quarter?" I was just about to we've doubled our projections. She thrust the tablet at me. "The new healing cream line is outselling everything else in its category." I scrolled through the report, a smile spreading across my face. "Send these to Nathan. He'll want to see them before tomorrow's board meeting." "Already done." Ruby flopped onto my office couch. "Speaking of Nathan, he asked about that mysterious investor again. The one who keeps trying to schedule meetings. Tell him what I always say. We're not interested in outside investment." "But, Jackie," their offering a knock at the door interrupted us. My assistant, Maria, poked her head in. "Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent." "I don't have any appointments." "It's Yara." The name hit me like a physical blow. Ruby jumped to her feet. "Want me to tell her to get lost?" "No," I said, smoothing my skirt. "Send her in." Yara looked different. Gone were the designer clothes and perfect makeup. Instead, she wore jeans and a plain sweater, her face drawn and tired. "Jackie," she said softly, "you look amazing." "What do you want, Yara?" She twisted her hands together. "I know I have no right to be here, but we need your help. Anton and we're in trouble." Ruby snorted. "That's rich. What kind of trouble?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "Financial trouble. The housing market crashed, and Anton's real estate business. She swallowed hard. We're about to lose everything. And you thought of me because you're successful. Because despite what we did to you, you've thrived. Tears welled in her eyes. Because I remember how kind you used to be. Used to be, I repeated. Before my husband and best friend betrayed me. I know he hurt you. Hurt me? I laughed. You destroyed my life. Or at least you tried to. Please, she whispered. Just talk to Anton. He's outside. Of course, he was. I walked to my office door and opened it. Sure enough, there he stood, looking older and considerably less polished than the man who'd walked out 5 years ago. Hello, Jackie, he said. It's Jacqueline, I corrected. Only friends call me Jackie. He flinched. Right, Jacqueline. You've done well for yourself. I have. No thanks to you. Ruby cleared her throat. Should I call security? I considered it for a moment, then had a better idea. No. Let's hear them out. We moved to the conference room where Anton laid out their situation. Bad investments, mounting debt, and a market crash had wiped them out. They were 3 months away from bankruptcy. We're not asking for a handout, Anton said, but maybe a partnership. Your brand is growing, and I still have contacts. The contacts that are currently avoiding your calls, I interrupted. He had the grace to look embarrassed. We can still bring value to your company. I stood up, walking to the window. Below, the Phoenix Rise logo glowed against the darkening sky. 5 years of hard work, of rebuilding myself from nothing, of proving them wrong. I'll think about it, I said finally. Really? Yara's face lit up. I'll have my team review your situation and get back to you in a week. After they left, Ruby exploded. You can't seriously be considering helping them. I smiled, a plan already forming in my mind. Remember what you told me 5 years ago about anger being productive? Yeah. Well, I'm about to be very productive. I picked up my phone. Get me Nathan. We need to talk about that mysterious investor. Later that night, I sat in my home office reviewing old photos on my laptop. There was one from my wedding day, Yara adjusting my veil, Anton waiting at the altar. I'd kept it all these years, a reminder of what I'd lost. Now, looking at it, I saw something different. A reminder of what I'd gained: strength, independence, power. My phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. Did some digging on Anton's business? You're going to want to see this. I smiled, closing the laptop. Time has only made us stronger, I whispered, echoing the words from that long-ago watch inscription. But this time, I was the one who was stronger, and they were about to find out just how much. Nathan spread the documents across my desk, his reading glasses perched on the end of his nose. Look at this, he said, pointing to a highlighted section. Anton's been moving money between shell companies for years. Is it illegal? I asked, scanning the papers. Not technically, but it's sketchy as hell. Nathan leaned back in his chair. He's been using these companies to hide assets. The question is, from whom? Ruby, who'd been unusually quiet, spoke up from her corner. From his investors, obviously. The ones he screwed over. Exactly, Nathan said. And here's where it gets interesting. One of those shell companies, it's still active, and it's sitting on a decent amount of money. I raised an eyebrow. How decent? 2 million, give or take. Ruby whistled. So much for being broke. Oh, they're broke, Nathan corrected. This money is tied up in legal knots. Anton can't touch it without exposing his whole scheme. I drummed my fingers on the desk. But someone else could. Nathan's eyes twinkled. With the right paperwork and the right pressure. Absolutely. The intercom buzzed. Miss Jacqueline? Mr. Anton and Miss Yara are here for their appointment. Perfect timing, I smiled. Send them in. They looked even more desperate than last week. Anton's shirt was wrinkled, and Yara's hands wouldn't stop shaking. Thank you for seeing us again, Anton said, taking a seat. I gestured to the papers on my desk. I've been reviewing your situation. And, Yara leaned forward eagerly, and I'm willing to help. I paused, watching their faces light up. On certain conditions, anything, Anton said quickly. Too quickly. First, I want full transparency. Every account, every transaction, every business deal from the past 5 years. Anton's face paled slightly. That's a lot of paperwork. Is it? I asked innocently. I thought you kept good records. We do. It's just what, Anton? Is there something you don't want me to see? Yara touched his arm. Anton, we have to tell her. Tell me what? Anton loosened his collar. Some of our business dealings were complicated. You mean like the shell company holding $2 million? The color drained from his face. How did you? I have good lawyers, I said simply. Now here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign over control of all your business interests to Phoenix Rise. All of them, Yara squeaked. In exchange, you'll both receive consulting positions with the company, modest salaries, health insurance, the works. That's generous, Anton said carefully. I'm not finished. You'll also sign an agreement giving me full authority to handle any complicated situations that might arise. And if we refuse, I smiled, then I make a few phone calls to your investors. I'm sure they'd be very interested in knowing where their money really went. The room fell silent. Anton and Yara exchanged looks. We need time to think about it, Anton said finally. You have until tomorrow morning. The papers will be ready at 9. After they left, Ruby slow clapped. That was beautiful. But what's your real plan? I turned to Nathan. How long would it take to transfer that $2 million to a charitable trust? With the right paperwork, a few days. And the women's shelter downtown, the one that helped me when I was at my lowest. They're still looking for funding, right? Ruby's eyes widened. Oh my God, you're going to give Anton's hidden money to the shelter. Yes, I picked up the phone. But first, I need to make a call to our mysterious investor. I think it's time they met our new business partners. Later that evening, I visited the shelter. Rosalind, the manager, greeted me with a warm hug. Jacqueline, we missed you at last month's fundraiser. I know I'm sorry, but I might have something to make up for it. I handed her a folder. How would you feel about a $2 million endowment? Her jaw dropped. Are you serious? Consider it karma's donation. I smiled. Sometimes, justice takes the scenic route. Walking back to my car, I received a text from Ruby. Anton's been making calls all afternoon. Sounds desperate. Good, I thought. Let him feel what desperation tastes like. Let him understand what it means to have your future in someone else's hands. Tomorrow at 9, they'd sign those papers, thinking they were saving themselves. They had no idea they were actually signing their karma check, and I was going to make sure it cleared. 9 o'clock sharp, and my office was a battlefield of tension. Anton and Yara sat across from me while Nathan quietly arranged documents on the conference table. Before we sign, Anton said, his voice strained, I want to know who this mystery investor is. Right on cue, the door opened. A tall woman in an impeccable suit walked in, and I watched the blood drain from Anton's face. Hello, Anton, she said coolly. Remember me? Victoria, he whispered. You know each other? I asked innocently, though I knew exactly who she was. One of Anton's biggest investors from 3 years ago. You could say that, Victoria replied, taking a seat. Anton lost $2 million of my money in what he called a guaranteed investment opportunity. Yara's head snapped toward Anton. You never told me about this. It wasn't relevant, he muttered. Wasn't relevant. Victoria laughed. You disappeared with my money, changed your phone number, and moved offices without a forwarding address. I'd say that's pretty relevant. I cleared my throat. Victoria has agreed to become a major stakeholder in Phoenix Rise. She'll be overseeing all our new acquisitions. You planned this? Anton accused, his fingers gripping the armrests. Actually, you planned it, I corrected. Every shell company, every hidden account. You created this maze. I'm just walking you through it. Nathan slid the contracts forward. Shall we begin? The next hour was excruciating for Anton and Yara as they signed away control of everything they owned. With each signature, Victoria's smile grew wider. There's one more thing, I said as they reached the final page. The women's shelter downtown needs board members for their charitable trust. You've both been nominated. A shelter? Yara asked. The same one that helped me put my life back together after you two destroyed it. I met her eyes. Consider it community service. This is blackmail, Anton growled. No, this is karma. But if you'd prefer, we could discuss this with the SEC instead. More signatures, more silent fury. When it was done, Nathan gathered the papers while Victoria stood. I'll see you both at Monday's board meeting, she said. Don't be late. After they left, Ruby burst in. Tell me I didn't miss the whole thing. Just the paperwork, I said. The real show starts Monday. Jackie, Nathan's voice was serious. Are you sure about this? Revenge can be a double-edged sword. This isn't just revenge, I replied. This is justice. They hurt people, Nathan, not just me, Victoria, other investors, everyone they stepped on to get ahead. And the shelter angle is legitimate. They need oversight, and Anton and Yara need humility. Besides, I smiled, wait until they find out about the mandatory volunteer hours. Later that afternoon, Yara showed up alone at my office. Can we talk? She asked. Just us? I gestured to the chair. She sat looking smaller than ever. I know you hate us, she began. I don't hate you, I interrupted. Hate requires energy I'd rather spend elsewhere. I just want you to understand consequences. By destroying us? By making you rebuild like I had to? I leaned forward. The shelter saved my life, Yara. When you and Anton left, I was broken. They helped me find purpose again. I didn't know. Of course, you didn't. You were too busy playing house with my husband. I softened my tone. But now you have a chance to help other women find their strength. Don't waste it. She wiped her eyes. Anton's been lying to me. About Victoria. About the money. I feel so stupid. Then learn from it. Monday morning, you start fresh. How you handle this determines your future. After she left, I called Rosalind at the shelter. The papers are signed. I told her, you'll have your funding by next week. And our new board members, they'll be there Monday. Trust me, they're motivated to make this work. You're either an angel or a genius, Rosalind laughed. Neither, I said, watching the sunset paint the sky phoenix red. Just someone who believes in poetic justice. My phone buzzed with a text from Ruby. Drinks tonight to celebrate. I typed back rain check. Meeting Nathan to go over Monday's presentation. Some might call it overkill, but I believed in being thorough. Monday would change everything, not just for Anton and Yara, but for every woman who would find shelter and support thanks to their hidden millions. Sometimes, karma needs a little help. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't serving it cold. It's serving it with a side of redemption. Monday morning arrived with an unexpected twist. Ruby burst into my office before the board meeting. Her face flushed with urgency. We have a problem, she said, tossing a USB drive onto my desk. Our IT team intercepted some emails between Anton and his lawyer. I plugged in the drive, scanning the messages quickly. Son of a, they're planning to contest the contract, Ruby continued, claiming coercion and emotional distress. His lawyer thinks they have a case. Nathan appeared in the doorway. That's not all. Victoria just called. Anton reached out to her yesterday, offering to settle their old debt privately. He's trying to outmaneuver us, I said, standing up. Where are they now? In the lobby, Ruby replied, looking way too smug for people who signed away their assets 3 days ago. I grabbed my phone, sending a quick text to Rosalind. Execute Plan B now. The boardroom was tense when I walked in. Anton and Yara sat together, both wearing satisfied smiles. Victoria sat opposite them, her face unreadable. Before we begin, Anton announced, I have something to say. Actually, I interrupted. I believe Rosalind has the floor first. I gestured to the door where Rosalind stood, carrying a thick folder. Who's she? Anton demanded. The director of New Beginnings Women's Shelter, I said. And as of Friday, the legal executor of your hidden assets. The color drained from Anton's face. What? Rosalind opened her folder. Mr. Anton, that shell company you created, the one holding $2 million, it's now legally transferred to our charitable trust. The paperwork was processed first thing Friday morning. That's impossible, Anton sputtered. You can't actually. We can, Nathan interjected. You signed over full authority to handle any complicated situations. Remember? Yara turned to Anton, her voice shaking. You said that money was gone. The transfer is ironclad, Rosalind continued. Our lawyers made sure of it. And since it's now charitable trust money, any attempt to contest it would trigger an automatic IRS audit. Anton jumped to his feet. This is theft. No, Victoria said coldly. This is justice. That money, it came from investors like me, people you deceived. Now it's going to help people you hurt. Yara, he pleaded, tell them this isn't fair. But Yara was staring at the shelter's financial reports Rosalind had distributed. 200 women helped last year, she whispered. 50 children. And with this funding, we can double those numbers. Rosalind smiled. Thanks to your contribution. Anton lunged for the papers, but security was faster. 2 guards appeared at the door. You planned this from the start, he accused, pointing at me. You manipulative careful, I warned. Everything in this room is being recorded. For the board's records, of course. Yara stood up slowly. I want to see it. See what? Anton asked. The shelter. The women we're helping. She turned to Rosalind. Can I? Of course, Rosalind replied. We're having an open house this afternoon. You can meet some of our residents. She's not going anywhere. Anton grabbed Yara's arm. She yanked it away. Yes, I am. And you're going to let me, or I'll tell Victoria exactly where her investment money really went. The room fell silent. Anton's face contorted with rage, then defeat. Fine, he spat. Go play saint with your new friends, but don't come crying to me when what? I interrupted. When she realizes there's more to life than covering up your lies. When she discovers her own strength. Ruby cleared her throat. Should I call the police? Or will security be enough to escort Mr. Anton out? He left without another word, the guards following close behind. Yara lingered after the others filed out. I should have seen it, she said quietly. All the lies, the manipulation, I was so blind. Love can do that, I replied. Or what we think is love. The shelter, do you really think I could help? I think you understand what it's like to lose yourself to someone else's desires. That understanding could help a lot of women. She nodded, tears in her eyes. Thank you. Not for the revenge part, but for showing me a way to make something good out of all this. After she left with Rosalind, Ruby perched on my desk. Well, that was anticlimactic. I expected more fireworks. Sometimes the quietest explosions cause the most damage, I said, watching Anton's retreating figure through the window. Besides, this isn't over. No? I smiled, picking up my phone. The press release about Phoenix Rise's new charitable initiative goes out in an hour. Wait until Anton sees his name in the headlines. Sometimes karma doesn't need a big show. Sometimes, it just needs the truth to come to light. The press conference room buzzed with energy. Reporters filled every seat, cameras flashing as I took my place at the podium. Ruby stood to my right, Victoria to my left, with Rosalind, and surprisingly, Yara seated in the front row. Thank you all for coming, I began. Today, Phoenix Rise is proud to announce our largest charitable initiative to date, a $5 million endowment to New Beginnings Women's Shelter. The room erupted with questions. I held up my hand for silence. This initiative was made possible through a unique partnership. Would Anton Dawson please join me at the podium? The room fell silent. Every head turned toward the back where Anton stood frozen, having just walked in. He'd clearly come to disrupt the proceedings, but now found himself in the spotlight. Anton, I prompted, would you like to tell everyone about your generous contribution? He strode forward, fury evident in every step. This is a setup, he hissed as he reached the podium. Is it? I turned to the reporters. $2 million of this endowment comes directly from Mr. Dawson's previously undisclosed assets. Assets that, until recently, were hidden from his investors and the IRS. The camera flashes intensified. Anton gripped the podium, knuckles white. That's a lie, he said into the microphone. Victoria stepped forward. Is it? I have the paper trail right here. She held up a folder. Would you like me to share it with these reporters? A journalist in the front row stood up. Mr. Dawson, is it true that you lost millions in investor funds through shell companies? Another reporter jumped in. Are there other hidden accounts we should know about? Anton's face turned red. No comment. This is all a manipulation by my ex-wife. Your ex-wife, Yara's voice cut through the chaos as she stood up, is trying to help people, unlike you, who only helps yourself. The room went dead quiet. Anton stared at her in disbelief. Yara, what are you doing? The right thing, finally. She turned to the reporters. I've spent the past week at New Beginnings seeing firsthand what this money can do. Women and children who've lost everything. Just like I lost myself with you, Anton. More cameras flashed. More questions flew. Anton backed away from the podium, but there was nowhere to hide. If you'll direct your attention to the screens, I continued smoothly, you'll see our comprehensive plan for the endowment funds. The presentation played, showing before and after photos of the shelter, stories of women who'd rebuilt their lives, and detailed financial projections. But the reporter's eyes kept darting between Anton's crumbling facade and Yara's quiet dignity. Miss Jacqueline, a reporter called out, what inspired this initiative? Sometimes, I said, looking directly at Anton, the best way to heal from betrayal is to turn it into something beautiful. Every woman deserves a second chance at happiness, at success, at life. This isn't over, Anton muttered as he stormed toward the exit. Actually, it is, Victoria called after him. The SEC would love to hear from you, by the way. They're very interested in those shell companies. The door slammed behind him. In the ensuing chaos of questions and camera flashes, Yara made her way to the podium. I'd like to announce something else, she said, her voice shaking but determined. I'm joining New Beginnings as their new outreach coordinator. My experience, my mistakes, they can help other women avoid the same traps. Ruby squeezed my arm. Did you know about this? I shook my head, watching as Yara handled questions with growing confidence. The broken woman from last week was gone, replaced by someone stronger, someone real. After the press conference, Rosalind pulled me aside. You've started something bigger than revenge here, she said. This morning, we received 3 calls from other women wanting to share their stories, wanting to help. Sometimes karma works in mysterious ways, I replied, watching as Yara gave an interview to a local news station. My phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. SEC just called. They want to talk to Anton tomorrow morning. Another buzz. Breaking news. Local businessman under investigation for financial fraud. And another. Phoenix Rise stock jumps 15% following charitable announcement. Ruby appeared with champagne. To karma, to second chances, I corrected raising my glass, and to women who rise. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds, casting a golden glow over the city. Somewhere out there, Anton was facing the consequences of his actions. But in here, surrounded by the positive energy of transformation and hope, I finally felt free. The phoenix had risen from the ashes, and this time, she'd brought an entire sisterhood with her. The autumn breeze carried the sound of laughter from the shelter's garden, where dozens of women gathered for the grand reopening ceremony. I stood at the back watching Yara lead a group tour through the newly renovated facilities. "And here's our Career Development Center," she explained, gesturing to a bright room filled with computers. "Every woman deserves the chance to rebuild her life on her own terms." Ruby appeared beside me holding 2 cups of coffee. "Have you seen the morning news? About Anton? Hard to miss." The headlines had been everywhere. "Local businessman pleads guilty to financial fraud." Anton had taken a plea deal, avoiding jail time, but accepting hefty fines and community service. His reputation was in tatters. His business contacts gone. "Jacqueline," a soft voice interrupted my thoughts. I turned to find Maria, one of the shelter's residents, holding a small gift bag. "We wanted you to have this." Inside was a handmade phoenix pendant crafted from copper wire and colored glass. "We all made one in art therapy," Maria explained. "It reminds us that we can rise from anything." Before I could respond, Nathan rushed over. "You need to see this," he said, holding up his tablet. On the screen was a social media post from Anton. "To everyone I've hurt through my actions, I'm sorry. Especially to Jacqueline and Yara. You turned my biggest mistakes into something meaningful. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm grateful for the lesson." "Wow," Ruby whispered. Hell really did freeze over. Victoria joined our group, reading over Nathan's shoulder. "Too little, too late." "Maybe not," I said, watching Rosalind lead another group of women through the garden. "Sometimes late is better than never." The ceremony continued with speeches and testimonials. When it was my turn to speak, I looked out at the crowd, survivors, supporters, journalists, and even a few familiar faces from my past. 5 years ago, I stood in these gardens broken and lost. Today, I stand here whole, surrounded by an army of phoenixes. I touch the pendant at my neck. We're not defined by who hurt us, but by how we rise above that hurt, and we rise higher when we rise together. After the ceremony, Yara pulled me aside. "There's someone who wants to meet you." She led me to a young woman sitting alone in the garden. "This is Lily. She left her husband last week after finding out about his affair with her cousin." The woman looked up, tears in her eyes. "Yara told me your story, how you turned your pain into power. I need to know how." I sat beside her taking her trembling hands in mine. "First, you need to know something. This isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning, but it hurts so much." "Pain is fuel," I said, remembering my own darkest days. "The trick is choosing what to do with it." Ruby appeared with a Phoenix Rise gift bag. "Maybe start with this. Our healing serum works wonders on crying-induced puffy eyes. Trust me, I helped develop it." Lily managed a small laugh, and something in my heart settled. This was why everything had happened. Not for revenge, but for moments like this. Later, as the sun set over the garden, I found myself alone by the fountain. The water sparkled with coins, wishes made by women dreaming of better tomorrows. "Making a wish?" Nathan asked, joining me. "I don't need to anymore." I pulled out a familiar object from my purse, the watch I'd taken back from Anton years ago. "But someone else might." I handed it to Nathan. "Have it engraved with 'Time heals all wounds' and add it to the shelter's fundraising auction." "Poetic," he smiled. "You know, when you first told me your revenge plan, I thought you were making a mistake. But this," he gestured to the thriving shelter, the laughing women, the new beginnings blooming everywhere. "This is better than revenge. It's justice," Ruby added, appearing with Yara. "Sweet, constructive, justice." The 4 of us stood there, watching the last rays of sunlight paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. A phoenix sunset, I thought. My phone buzzed with a message from Rosalind. 3 more women just checked in. They saw the news coverage. They're ready to rise. I smiled, touching the phoenix pendant at my neck. Some people might call it karma,